Hello and welcome to Geek First Sidequest, your weekly stop for video game news, reviews, and more here on the Geek First Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Hart, caster Dylan Musk, and I have with me the DD, Taylor Field. Welcome to the podcast. What is that nickname referencing?
The Developer Direct.
Okay.
But that name was taken.
Is that what they've been calling it on social media? You guys ready for the DD?
Yeah.
That actually kind of is in line with the way Xbox acts on social media these days. I could see them doing something like that, so that's kind of fitting. But yeah, today really all we're talking about is the Xbox Developer Direct from I think January 25th, 26th, whatever it was here, where they showed off 5 games in depth, and so we're going to break down all of that. But just a couple plugs. First off, make sure to check out the Patreon, episodes early and ad-free, and also we're talking about Redfall today. The Arcane retrospective that we're doing is going to be, the first episode is probably going to be up there within a couple weeks here, so it's a good time to head over to Patreon because that's going to be up probably a good month and a half, 2 months early than when it'll hit the main feeds. Join the Discord. That's always a good time there. The Twitters, the Facebooks, all that good stuff. We're reviewing the Last of Us TV show week to week, so you can go check out those reviews. And I think that's pretty much it. Anything you want to plug over in your realm? Taylor, any good cryptid clues things going on? I mentioned this to you, but I've been pairing Cryptid Clues and Fire Emblem Engage, which is strangely a good combo. You know, like every wine has some meal, or like whatever meal has like the perfect wine to pair with it, which funny enough happened in Last of Us as well last night. But that's like, you got to have that pairing. My pairing for whatever reason has been Cryptid Clues and Fire Emblem. So yeah, what's going on over there?
Oh, gosh, what is going on? A new episode dropped today. Me and Ruben diving into but an hour's worth of time travel. And, I mean, an hour is not enough to talk about time travel, but we do our best.
It's a good start.
It's a good start, yeah. But, there's a couple other things that'll be populating there. I know Geekverse-related stuff. We have, I'm going to try and do a Bad Batch Season 2 episode this week. I've been kind of debating. I might do it, but, National Treasure, they've been dropping episodes every week, and I'm totally invested in that series. And I'm kind of thinking maybe I'll do a full end of series review too, but we'll see.
Is that ending this week? Is that why you say that?
No, I think there's I don't know when it's ending because I think we're 7 episodes in. It's pretty girthy.
I didn't even know those shows were ongoing. So there you go. There were always tons of stuff going on. Yeah, we're also, I think Kirkland and Travis are reviewing Knock at the Cabin, and then we're talking about the DC slate, which that should be tomorrow at some point. So yeah, we're going to be breaking that down as well. But yeah, with that, let's get right into it. Before we get into the Developer Direct, I wanted to bring this up quickly because this just kind of broke today. But IGN, I don't know if you saw this. Someone put it in our Discord. I think it was Fanboy Clay. Shout out to him. That IGN was reporting that apparently Nintendo, Xbox, and PlayStation will not have a presence at E3 this year. They are no showcase. They're not going to have any stage presence as well, which to me, that's almost the crazier thing. If Nintendo was like, oh yeah, we'll do our Direct and it's not related, but to not have booths or anything like that set up is kind of wild. So yeah, I know you haven't thought about this before, but any just off the top of your head thoughts on that?
That's very peculiar. I just feel yes, E3 has gone through its own level of tribulations in the past, but at the end of the day, this is still a widely well-known showcase. Many people around the world are familiar with it and the branding. So to just kind of be completely devoid of tuning into it, I feel like it's a missed opportunity. I feel like there's a lot of potential to capitalize on this audience here. But they obviously, if this is the case, they obviously know something that we don't. And maybe they can look at numbers or statistics and just kind of see, hey, this performance is costing us too much and not yielding enough in return, as opposed to doing our own directs. So
yeah, it's for me, Nintendo was the interesting one because PlayStation's already kind of stepped away from the E3 stage, and then Xbox has kind of been doing their own thing too. And we'll talk about that today because they're really been reinventing themselves with the way they're showing off their games lately. But yeah, Nintendo was the one that I thought would be there until the bitter end. And they always go all out on their booths. They do fully immersive experiences and stuff like that for their big games. And I guess maybe it's just the timing is awkward. Zelda's coming out in May, E3's June, and they just don't have anything huge. So they're fuck it. We don't want to waste our time with it. It could be as simple as that. But the E3 name is also just been kind of poisoned in the last few years. And like, think about it, last few years, like even the E3s that we have had, like think back to like the big summer announcements. Like, was it an E3 thing? Was it Summer Game Fest? Was it some other showcase? I feel like people don't know anymore. So maybe that's where these corporations are coming in and just like, whatever. We don't really need that E3 moniker. And plus, I mean, they charge you an arm and a leg to, have floor space or do a showcase branded with them. So I guess it's not too surprising. I think I'm finally at a point where the last few years I've really been hanging on like, oh man, I love E3. I have great memories of it. I want it to keep going. I like that it's more organized. But at the same time, like, all these showcases kind of cannibalize each other. And I think I'm at a point now where I'm like, I'm over it. I don't really care anymore. Like E3, no matter what, even if E3 were to come back in a big way, Summer Game Fest wouldn't leave, so we'd still have a huge shit show. So at this point, I don't think I particularly care what happens one way or another. But without those three, I don't not know what's going to go on with E3 this year, if they even go ahead with it or if they just cancel after these things. So we'll see if there's any confirmation officially from any those three. But that was, I mean, from IGN, so it's probably pretty credible. I don't think they would spew that unless they had a good reason to believe that. But speaking of showcases, let's get into this. So the Xbox Developer Direct, this is the first time they've done a showcase with this branding. It's Developer_Direct. For whatever reason, they want to be cool. I don't know if they want to differentiate from Nintendo Direct in some way, but that's what they're doing here. And essentially, they advertise this as, we're going to show off 4 games. We're going to show off Redfall, Forza Motorsport, Minecraft Legends, and Elder Scrolls Online. And we're going to, show just a big deep dive on all these things. I think the show is maybe 40 minutes long. You just watched it today. That's about
it's like
40
44
minutes, right?
minutes, yeah.
Yeah, they had a surprise 5th game there. So between 5 games, 45 minutes, a lot of gameplay, tons and tons of gameplay. We got mostly release dates for everything. And then, as the name suggests, Developer Direct, there was a lot of developers talking about their projects and really explaining it, which I really like that part of it, right? Because I just feel like I have a very great understanding what all these projects are now. So, as being like a new thing for Xbox, what did you think of just the format of it and all that stuff?
I liked it. I think that it's precise, it's concise, and consistent. You know exactly what you're getting into. If you aren't interested in these titles, or again, these developers, you don't have to tune into it. You can tune away. You don't have to be left hanging like, oh, I want to tune into this direct because maybe they're going to talk about one of my games that I anticipate, and then you get disappointed. I think this is great because it's catered for what the viewers are wanting to see here. And again, the deep dives, I really like it. I like that they really focused in, showed some new things we haven't seen before. I just thought that it was really well executed, and each game felt like it had the right amount of time focused on it. There wasn't a point in time where I felt bored, and that is definitely a thing that happens in these conferences sometimes.
Well, I think even like the one thing that did kind of drag on, you could say, was Redfall, but that was at the end. So I feel like if people were like, okay, I've got the showcase, I've seen the things they're showing off, I've seen 5 minutes of Redfall, I can like check out at this point. So I think even that like pacing of it was pretty good. But yeah, I really liked it. I mean, my criticisms of these shows is always like, you didn't show enough gameplay and there was no release dates, especially Xbox. That's a big thing with Xbox. They've had a couple of their E3 equivalent shows where it's just, here's 50 games, but you got gameplay for like 2 things. And it's like, man, I need to see what these games are. I'm so confused. And I think this was great. There was tons and tons of gameplay and release dates for everything save for one title, which we're going to get into why or why not they didn't show that off. And then I think too, like, developers talking about their games can kind of be a hit or miss thing. And I think it can typically be a miss if you like bring them up on stage and you have like a Jeff Keighley like asking someone questions. I think that normally doesn't go super well, but this was great because it was like the production value was super high. Clearly this was all pre-recorded and they edited it down and made it really snappy and stuff like that. So I think none of it really dragged on for me, and it was just a good amount of information. And I was interested even in games that I don't really care about. The Forza Motorsport, I was still like, once again, as you said, like pacing of it was good. So I was kind of invested in it. So let's get into the first game. I'm going to go in reverse order here because the whole showcase, I was sitting down. I'm like, okay, I see what's here. I'm very curious Minecraft Legends, but I'm here for Redfall, baby. I want to see all this information. Of course, Arcane. We're doing the retro. I'm super excited. Been playing a bunch of Arcane stuff lately. Can't wait for this thing, and I need a lot more information. And then like they had this kind of, whiteboard or scratch pad, whatever you want to call it thing. And they would always like zoom out to this home screen where they showed off like the 5 games. And then they would like circle something, zoom in, and then go into it. And after every one, I was like, okay, Redfall time, Redfall time. And nope, they kept zooming somewhere else. So I had to wait till the very end to get my Redfall breakdown. But obviously, I'm a huge Arcane fan, and I do have some criticisms of what they showed here, though. But I am still very intrigued. But I'm curious what you thought, just kind of some overall thoughts. We're going to get into a lot of the details here, but what were your overall thoughts on Redfall now that we are officially just, I guess, 3 months away from this thing? It's pretty much right
it's
around the
May,
corner.
right? That's what they said.
Yeah, May 2nd.
Yeah. This game, I feel like this is just an absolute Halloween time game. I feel like October is gonna roll around, and I just want to be playing this game. Not like no matter what, like I do want to dabble in it, but I just feel like when I'm seeing them traverse through the environments and the neighborhoods, it just feels like it's a spooky game, and I love it so much. Now, seeing what they demonstrated in this gameplay, I thought it was cool to see, because I don't know exactly what has been shown before and what hasn't. So for me, a lot of this was first time viewing, like the building of the skill trees, kind of customizing what kind of like path you want to progress with, upgrading the guns, and just the cosmetic approach of the guns too, and just certain usage of the abilities and everything, and getting to really explore the neighborhoods, which I really liked. How you clear out a neighborhood and you take out like this vampire boss, and that progresses further towards getting to the vampire gods. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really like seeing a lot more detail involved, where you're staking a vampire, or the quest too, like going and just trying to do the lighthouse objective, put that light back in there to keep people out of Redfall. I think it looks super, super fun.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, for me, the big question is they've been talking a lot in interviews lately, so that's where a lot more information has been coming out. But as you mentioned, like there wasn't a ton of gameplay out there so far, and people were kind of confused. Like, okay, is this Arcane like doing their take on Left 4 Dead with vampires instead of zombies? But they've said in interviews lately, and then confirmed that in the developer direct here, that this is not like Left 4 Dead really at all, other than you're fighting monsters. But this is an open world game, which Arcane has not done before. Like they've had open-ended games like Prey, or even back to their first game, Arx Fatalis, but they've always been more of like a level structured sort of design for their games. So this is very different for them, going open world, and they've compared it to Far Cry, like kind of specifically Far Cry 2 and 3 in terms of format, and then it's like a very immersive, systems-heavy game, but in an open world. So obviously they showed here that there's like main quests you can go for, or they really highlighted, I feel like, that you can kind of just go around, do whatever you want. As you said, like this neighborhood, I kind of want to just clear it out and, fight the boss here and kind of neutralize this zone, or chase down side quests and stuff like that. But I don't feel like they really focus too much on like, here's what the main story of the game is and you should hunt this down, which I think is really cool, because I think that focus, like in open world games, I usually like to screw around and stuff anyway, and it seems like this game is kind of conducive to that, which also to me is perfect for what Arcane does as a studio. But yeah, there's a couple. So let's break down some of the specifics here. One like scene they showed, and it kind of showed a couple different variants of this, was you going through a house with like your gun flashlight. It's very dark, very creepy. You're looking through all the different corners, and of course at some point like a vampire jumps out and is coming to attack you and stuff. But I don't know. I think that could be a very fun element of the game, the horror kind of jump scare element of it as you're cruising through these different towns, houses, and stuff like that, because I feel like, yeah, some towns will be just over the top with vampires everywhere, big outside battles, but other ones will probably be more low-key like this. But I don't know. What did you think of that kind of little horror section that they showed off?
I thought it was fantastic. I felt like it was very reminiscent of other horror games that I've played, and I know this game is co-op and you can indulge, but I like that it has that kind of level of fear if you are playing alone, and it's sometimes like it's not like a straight up jump scare, but it's just it's the aesthetic that they're going for, and just the setting that they've kind of created for you to explore in these homes or whatever, with a vampire that could jump out from the corner, or the attic or something like that. So I really appreciate that. You mentioned like the scale to just being open world. When they pan out and they just showed that map and the line moving across, and just how many of these homes you get to clear out and just explore, like it is massive. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I'm really curious what the kind of is there going to be a lot of kind of the in between? Okay, you have like a town, and whether it's like the seaside port they were talking about, or like the lighthouse area and the different towns. Like, I'm curious how much space there'll be kind of in between these more set PC areas, because when I think of Arcane, it's like great level design, and I'm sure like trudging through those towns is going to be really, really fun and fantastic. But I'm really curious what the in between is. They briefly talked about there's like a haunted forest or something like that. So I feel like that could be more of a open area or something like that. So I'm curious to see these different zones. They showed off like an amusement park area, which is very classic for the kind of vibe they're going for here. So I'm very curious to see these things. And yeah, the single, once again, they've always highlighted this with marketing this game, is that, okay, we're doing a co-op game, but you can play this game alone. And I think it seems like they are doing a pretty good job of serving both of those. We don't really have any information on, let's say me and you go in a lobby together and we, crush a bunch of quests, level up both of our characters. And then like, let's say we did that on your save. If this is how it works, like, do I get any of that progress carried over? How much of it, that kind of thing. So those are the kind of details I'm very curious about. I think I definitely want to play this both co-op and single player. And hopefully, Taylor, you're, even before Halloween, want to jump in and check it out with me, since it's, of course, a Game Pass Day One thing. So with that, let's talk about some of these characters a bit. They showed off more about these 4 characters. So we got Jacob Boyer here. This is the kind of the Raven. He's got I guess they call him the dead eye with an undead eye, which I really like that little phrasing. But he's got the kind of raven, the ghost raven that he attacks with, and he has like a stealth ability. He kind of actually reminds me of the sniper class from the first Borderlands game. But I like this. Seems like a much more of a classic kind of Arcane sort of character in terms of the stealth element of it, and the fact that you can go like fully invisible is pretty cool, and you can get like really close up with the vampires. So he looked interesting. There was Layla Ellison. This is another character that kind of has like that lift ability where you and your characters can kind of get flown up into the air, and the umbrella that eats bullets and like shoots it back at your opponent. So I really like that character. And then I wanted to bring this one up. I don't know if because I have watched this multiple times, and I'm like pausing on certain frames to look at the details of this thing. And I don't know if you saw this description they gave for Devinder Dev Krausley, but they called him the verified cryptid hunter. So I feel like this is your man. This is probably the character you're going to play at this point.
I love that title. I did not spot that.
This is the guy that has the ability to teleport pretty long distance, it looked like, compared to like how far you can normally teleport in these games. And then he has like that arc javelin, I think is what they called it, or maybe the black light. But that's like the light that you stamp down and it shoots out a bunch of electricity that they showed off a couple times. So that's who that character is. So is that moveset vibe with you, or do you favor one of these other characters more?
I like teleporting around and stuff like that. That's definitely my kind of moveset. Yeah, cryptozoologist is what I'm seeing he is. I dig it.
Nice. So yeah, I think that's definitely going to be your guy. The last character is Remy, I guess is her nickname there, and she seems like a more classic kind of soldier character. She's got like C4 charge. She's the one who has like the little robot companion that you can use to bait and presumably attack other vampires when you level it up. And she has an ability called Mobilize, which I don't know if we saw what that does, but I'm guessing just gives her some sweet mobility. So she seems like a more traditional kind of shooter character, which is helpful to have in there. I think for me, I'd go with Layla. I really like the jumping, like that kind of purple abilities and magic that she has. Like that seems like a very classic Arcane style for me. One thing that I'm wondering, though, just looking at the way they, as you mentioned, they showed off some of the skill trees, and it's kind of like these 3 abilities, and then there's like passives that look like on the side based on when I was pausing and looking around at different stuff. And so I guess this is one thing I'm wondering when I think of like, okay, Dishonored, where you can have like a bunch of different abilities, all these different weapons at your disposal that you can switch to on the fly at any point. Like, I guess I'm maybe slightly concerned that they're taking like maybe the depth of a Dishonored game and just dividing it between these different characters. And it seems like, okay, if each character only has like 2 to 3 active abilities, are they going to be super interesting in the long haul, or they want you to more switch between characters, campaign to campaign, or just like based on what you're doing? Do you think there's any? Should I be worried about this at all, or am I just overthinking it?
Well, I almost equate this to Gotham Knights, where like as you're going through, like you could, to my knowledge, you could go through playing as one character. You don't really have to diverge to another character. Well, they do have their own kind of like couple of unique abilities and stuff like that. Like for the most part, I feel Like, are they gonna force you to play as other characters for certain missions, or?
I don't think so. I'm not getting that vibe at all. And they even talked about how you could have, your party could consist of like multiple Laylas. So if multiple people want to play as that character, you can. Which I mean, I think when me and you are playing and whoever else we get in there, I probably want to have one of each kind of thing, in just terms of the balance of abilities and whatnot. But based on that, if you can have double of one character, I would assume at no point you're forced to play any particular character. So that makes me wonder too, like what the narrative is going to be like if, like, let's say you play the whole game single player and you only play as one character. Like, I don't think you have AI companions for the other people. I think it's just like you're just playing alone in that way. So I'm guessing each one of them. Yeah, I now that I think about that, I hadn't thought about that before. But like, I'm really curious now what the like narrative of this thing will be, if it's maybe more on the fly and kind of adaptive rather than one set narrative for these characters and their backstory and stuff like that.
That seems to be for a lot of these types of games moving forward. Like even Assassin's Creed has done that too, where it's like, I think they want you to kind of feel more like you being this character. So you're not being forced. It's more like play your way and you can go through and progress the story. Like whatever cutscenes you'll see, if you swap characters, it'll just keep swapping those characters around in the cutscenes and it'll roll along seamlessly, I guess. So
right. Yeah, I'm curious what then the dialogue of those sequences will be, but excited to see that. They showed off what seems to be like a pretty good amount of enemy variety here. Of course, there's a lot of different types of like kind of fodder zombies that are maybe pretty easy to fight. But then they showed off this one called the Shroud, which kind of puts like a wall of smoke or darkness essentially around you, so you can only see so far. And then they can hide in the floors and like different walls and stuff like that. So that one seems like, and then like they're really tall and spindly and really weird looking. So I'm excited to fight that guy. There was the I don't know if they had a name for this one, but at one point I think it was like you completed some objective into town, and it was just like some really fucking jacked vampire with like a hood who was chasing you down. It was really like there was like a storm going on or something, so that looked pretty cool. And then the like craziest of all is that they said, okay, once you clear a neighborhood, there's like different bosses, different layers of bosses that you'll fight. And if you like go deep down in this one area, there's like a vampire god down there. And that's like almost like one of those classic action kind of fighting game boss fights where it's like a huge boss. You can only see like their torso and upwards and like they're just slapping their arms around and stuff. So we kind of saw a very quick glimpse of a fight against one of these vampire gods. So I'm curious what the other ones look like. But yeah, it seems like there's pretty good enemy variety. I gotta say, I'm still not in love with the look of the vampires in this game. Arcane Studios, just like art design and level design, stuff like that, they're just my favorite studio. And there's a couple of things, I guess, visually about this game that look a bit weaker to me. And maybe I got to see it in person. Maybe I got to not see it on YouTube compression live stream and all that stuff. But I don't know. What do you think about these vampires? Anything stand out to you? And I guess what about just like the visual design of them? Are you like me, or are you more think they're looking pretty cool?
I think they look pretty okay, pretty cool. I think it fits kind of the environment, again, the aesthetic that they're kind of going for. I totally agree with the different variants of vampire. I think that's super sweet because there looks like there was your classic like popper one. He took a shot and then he just like and it exploded. And
Yeah.
I love the idea of the Rook. Was that what you were referring to? The guy with the hood?
That sounds like the name. Yeah, I think.
Okay,
that's
yeah. If you kill too many or whatever, or get like piss off the vampire gods, then they send the Rook after you and he like hunts you down.
That's a great name.
Super cool. Yeah, so I'm totally down to have like a bounty hunter vampire coming after you if you do too much. And yeah, like eliminating these hives too, because we got to see them like clear out this little nest thing and like it like dissipated and stuff. So, yeah, I think that I'm sure there's a lot more that we haven't seen, like types and variants. So
yeah, and I mean, just the variety of locations that you're gonna be fighting in also will just vary up that gameplay, and then whether or not you're solo or with teammates. So very curious to see how they do the balance of that in terms of if you have more people in your lobby, do they just like get percentage higher HP and stuff like that, or is there more zombies thrown at you? Vampires. So we'll see. They showed off that there's kind of safe zones around the map. So they showed off one in a fire station where a bunch of like survivors are just chilling. You can go there to get quests and I guess restock, save and all that kind of stuff. So I like that. We hadn't seen that before. So that's cool. I like that there's some safe areas, and it seems like maybe you have to create some of them, right? By like clearing out areas. But other ones you maybe just will stumble upon them and there's already kind of safe zones. So I'm curious also how much there'll be of like civilians out in the wild. Are you like saving people maybe that are locked up in a house or maybe in an attic, and like a vampire's just like bloodletting them and like torturing them or something? Maybe you can like break people out in that way. So that looked pretty cool. Once again, some more variety thing. Like I think once again they've shown off that there's a bunch of different weapons that you can play with here on top of the abilities that each character has. And then the one thing I like is they showed off some like customization of your guns, but it seems like a big part of that is putting the stake on the end of your gun, like you're essentially like a bayonet that you can use. And there's all sorts of different ones. They showed off a bunch of different cool styles. So I really like that. I hopefully the weapon customization is pretty cool. And Deathloop, they did a little bit of that. It was pretty basic, so I'm hoping for a little bit more of an evolution. It seems like there is in terms of visually changing what your gun looks like too, which that's pretty important and looks pretty fun in there.
Yeah, totally.
And then I think maybe one of the last things here for me is so they didn't actually show this in the direct, but with this is they open pre-orders officially. And so with that, there's like the Bite Back edition was what they call it. So just like the deluxe version of the game. And in this, interestingly, it's cool that first of all, you can like, if you're playing the game on Game Pass, you can just buy this as like an additive thing. Like you don't have to buy the full game and then the bonus amount to get this. Like if you're playing through Game Pass, it's like $30 add-on to get this Bite Back edition. So I'll be picking that up. But of course, there's like each character gets a new costume. There's like unique weapon and bayonet and whatever, all that stuff. But then interestingly, like a little icon, they didn't really highlight this, is that they're going to be adding 2 characters in the future. So this is pretty exciting for me. I'm curious to see what kind of movesets they have. There's really no information on the Bite Back edition like description page about what these characters are. So I don't know if they've really even finalized that yet, but I'm really like, that's pretty exciting for me. I hope this game does really well and it gets updates for a while. I don't need it to be a live service game that lives for years and years, but a couple DLCs, they've had some pretty great DLC in the past for their games. So that's pretty exciting. But yeah, just in general, like I'm really into this. I think for me is some of the ideas of what they're doing here is like, okay, this is very different from the Arcane that I've played all these games before. They're doing open world in terms of the structure of this thing, being less maybe narrative focused, just larger levels and stuff like that. But I'm really into it. And I think for me, it's like, even when I look at they did Dishonored and that was a big success, but then they took like huge swings with Prey, huge swings with Deathloop in terms of trying different things structurally. And for me, those are home runs. Both of those like very much worked. And so even if I have maybe some reservations about Redfall currently, even especially after what we saw here, I still am like very excited to see what they're doing here. And I'm sure this is something they're quite passionate about. And I think the co-op is fun as well. That's something I'll be looking to take advantage of. But yeah, any other just closing thoughts on Redfall here?
Yeah, you mentioned earlier the Left 4 Dead kind of comparison. I definitely don't get that at all. I feel I'm happy about that because when I look at this, it just feels like it's very much its own thing. It feels very unique.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am very much excited to try this. That's interesting that they're adding 2 more characters. Do you think that just opens up different party sets or like a potential 6-person co-op?
Oh, no, I think it'll probably stick to 4-player co-op. You just play swapping these different characters.
Gotcha.
I would imagine. Yeah, and I'm wondering, I'm curious too if they'll add any new like locations, whether it's just like something has changed on the world map or like another island, that you could go to with the new stuff. Because I don't know, they've definitely done a fair share of that in DLC. If it's just these characters, I'm cool with that. But yeah, we don't really know how big the game is, how big the open world is, like how long it'll take you to get through all those quests. So yeah, a lot of unknowns still, but I think for me, I got like all the information I really needed. I think I have a good vibe for what this game is now. So with that, let's take our first ad break here, and we'll be back to break down the rest of this showcase. Okay, we are back. There's two of these 5 things I don't think we're going to have much to say about, so maybe we'll just go through those real quick. And who knows, maybe Taylor is very passionate about these things, but let's start off with Elder Scrolls Online. So this is kind of one of those things that like every year, Xbox's summer show, I guess, well, now that they're acquired, but before just Bethesda's show, it seems like, okay, we're always going to get an Elder Scrolls Online segment where they're going to show the new DLC that they're doing, and so they showed off a new class here, the Necrom, which is, I guess, like a necromancer type class, and Honestly, this part of the direct was a bit strange to me because I just felt like it was such a sales pitch compared to all these. Of course, all these things are sales pitches. This is a big marketing thing, but this one felt more than ever like this guy was just like, "Please play our game. Like, please come check out our game."
Oh yeah.
One of the big selling points was, and this is pretty cool, admittedly, that like all the DLC updates that they've done in the last few years are going to be free for a limited time. So I guess now is the perfect time to jump in. I don't know how long that limited time is. I don't know if it was like a weekend. Hopefully it's like a month or a few weeks or something like that, so people have a good chance. But yeah, so that's cool, right? And like once again, they show these things off with like, oh, you can play Oblivion, you can play the Morrowind update, and like they're playing like on my heartstrings, and they're showing off Alderaan, like a really cool city in Morrowind. And I'm like, oh, I do want to check that out, but I don't know. I just maybe because Elder Scrolls 6 is still years off. Maybe I'll at some point really need that itch to be scratched, and I'll go check out online for another few hours. But just not really my genre, and I prefer Bethesda's design for what Elder Scrolls is. But yeah, anything in this new update for Elder Scrolls gonna pull you in?
Elder Scrolls Online is something where I've downloaded it and I don't play it, and then I delete it, and then I re-download it again on my hard drive. Now, I applaud them for the sales pitch. You nailed it. And I quote, they're like, oh, when you fought that dragon the first time in Skyrim, well, imagine going to a region that's just covered with dragons. Like, it's like, oh my god. Well, remember the first time you fought an ice troll? Well, you can do it all over again. It's like, oh, you guys gotta calm down here. Oh my goodness.
He's very passionate about his project.
Very passionate, rightfully so. Like, the game looks fantastic. Everything you could do. Like, I definitely have my interest peaked, or my interest is peaked on this. But I don't know if I would necessarily get into it. To get into it and commit to a game like this is very demanding, and such demands do not come easily in my life at this point in time. So the moments that I do have to invest in the world of Elder Scrolls, it would probably just be going back to Skyrim, to be honest, which I've been doing. So
Yeah, no, I go back to Morrowind or Oblivion or Skyrim sometimes too. Like every once in a while, and even right now I'm playing like Fallout 3, so I feel like that itch is very much scratched by that. Like I don't really need this right now. So that new update, at the very least, is coming out June 5th, which I think is the same day as Diablo 4. So I feel like more people are going to be playing Diablo 4 unless that gets pushed, but who knows? But shout out to Elder Scrolls Online, and then the other one, Forza Motorsport, which confusingly, like I think they're just kind of essentially doing like a not necessarily a reboot, but they're doing that for the title, where it's not like 7, 8, whatever number they're on. Like, it's just Forza Motorsport is the name of this thing. And yeah, I mean, once again, this was very much like every other car racing game trailer where it's like, the teraflops are off the roof. We have 20 new environments, and all this ray tracing is 5 times greater than any game you've ever, like all this stuff. And it's like, you're right. Like, this game looks amazing, and maybe will be the best game I've ever seen. Like Forza Horizon 5 was potentially that for me. So I'm sure this game will kind of just up the ante in that way too. But yeah, I guess I will play this because of Game Pass. I'll definitely check it out. And I've done that a lot. Like Dirt 5, Grid Legends were on Game Pass. And like every once in a while, I'm just craving like a racing game like that. So I just jump in and cruise around. I think I still have Dirt 5 on my hard drive and still just jump in and do a race every once in a while. So I'll definitely check out Motorsport, the new one. But I don't know if there's anything in this trailer that really necessarily sold me on it. It's really just the Game Pass model makes it easy to check this thing out.
Yeah, I realized in retrospect when I looked at our video game draft that we did, and I drafted Forza Motorsport, I called it Forza Motorsport 6, but it's not 6. Okay. I don't know where I got the 6
like
from.
None of us like tracked on that. We're just like, oh yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, this is the Forza Motorsport that I mean, though.
Yeah,
and
yes. Like, we'll give it to you.
Looking at it, I've never been one to really dive into a Forza game before, but this one really is piquing my interest. Okay. And I get maybe I'm a sucker for the sounds. When you say like, yeah, when you change this turbo prime whatever in your engine, it changes the sound of the car. I'm like, oh, I kind of like that. So, and the day and night cycles too, and just the racing. So when it drops on Games Pass, I could quite easily see myself dabbling into this game.
So with this is the one game here that I was pretty surprised to not see a release date for. Do you think that this is something that is still coming out soonish and they just don't have an exact date, so they didn't want to do it? Or is this more like, okay, this is coming out in the fall, we don't, we'll announce this date at like our E3 equivalent show, or some other reason why you think there wasn't a release date here?
Oh, looking at previous Forza games, they seem to range between October and November.
Yeah, I know the most recent Horizon came out in November. 'Cause I remember people
Yeah.
were salty. It came out like a day after the Game Awards like cut off or something like that, so it couldn't be
Oh.
eligible. And people were like, "Oh, this is the game of the year," and I'm like, I don't think so, but it's cool. But
I think it's probably, again, they're gonna be working away at it, get another trailer, and then we'll get it in the fall this year. So
yeah, which I guess is somewhat of a soft delay, because that was one of the things of Xbox's showcase last year was, okay, everything's coming out in the next 12 months is what they said. And that showcase was in June. This was part of that. So I guess that would be a bit of a delay, but they didn't really word it as such. But yeah, to me, this seems like one of those ones, okay, like this is whatever game in the series. It's kind of like a known quantity to some extent. Like I feel like they should have a good idea of what a release date for this thing is, but obviously games are very hard to make, so I do not blame them for not having it. But yeah, I'm sure we'll get that in June. I think no way that we don't get a release date then. But I kind of also thought that for this showcase, to be honest. So we'll see. Who knows what's going on with that. Next up, let's talk about Taylor's favorite IP, Minecraft. So Minecraft Legends, which is a game that announced, I think it was only shown off with a cinematic trailer. Maybe there was a tiny bit of gameplay, but we didn't really know anything about it. And I feel like here they really gave you the lowdown. Like, here's what this game is. But essentially, it's kind of a RTS sort of game. So the camera's more pulled out. Still looks a lot like Minecraft, as you'd expect. But you're essentially building bases, and not block by block like in regular Minecraft, where you can click and drag, and that builds a whole wall for you. You're building different structures, building walls, and then you are building up an army and attacking your opponent, whether that's in the campaign, so against AI, or they really highlighted here that there is the big multiplayer element to this. PvP, I'm guessing you can do teams as well if you want to do like a 2v2 or something like that. But yeah, so Taylor, obviously you actively dislike Minecraft, but what did the gameplay of Legends do for you? Does this seem interesting to you? Because I know you've dabbled and you are a fan of the RTS genre.
I'm a big fan of RTS games, and yes, I've never played Minecraft, but I have to say this one was definitely enticing. When I was actually seeing the gameplay and seeing what was involved with this, and how they're like clicking around building the base, or it's not just that, but like it is still an open world experience. You can go and explore and find cool resources. You can go off and do build your defense, or you could just build a forward command center, build your army, and take down an enemy keep. Like, it seems really, really immersive with all the different options. And on top of that, you have another faction, the pygmies, I think they're called,
Right.
that were like trying to like take everyone down too, so you always have to be on guard for that. I thought that it was really, really, really cool. It looked visually really nice. Like, it has that classic Minecraft aesthetic, which is nothing wrong with that. But it's just given a nice, refreshed, vibrant look to it as well. Very polished. I could see myself dabbling in this, and I mean, that'd break my Minecraft streak of never playing a Minecraft game. So
I do think this is a good opportunity to jump in and kind of get some of that world. But yeah, it's kind of what you highlighted with the exploration. To me, that was kind of the surprise here. I feel like they're really trying to hammer that home, that you really can just play this as an exploration game, which, like, I mean, I guess you could maybe just put the setting on easy, put the mode on easy, and just cruise around in this world and check it out and build up a cool base and not really worry too much about the combat. So I guess that's how the exploration would go. But yeah, I mean, I guess you can kind of just do whatever you want with it. Like, they're just like giving you this game. You can play it as intended, or you can just screw around, which is very much like Minecraft. Like, eventually they did add a way to roll credits and beat the game, but for many years it was just screw around, do whatever you want in this world, and that's where the joy of it comes. So I'm a huge Minecraft fan. I've played that game just hundreds of hours of my life, many servers, many single player campaigns. All that kind of thing. So I'm really interested in this because, I like that world, and the gameplay looks really cool. Just quickly building stuff. It's even cool seeing the strategies. Like, some people had like kind of their core base, and they had like the walls around it, and then they would have like a second layer of walls, like you can probably build like a moat or something. One person was talking about how they like to build like a maze. They just build like a huge maze around their base so the person doesn't know how to get like most efficiently, I guess, to where the center is. So like it seems like there's a lot of cool different ways you can play this game, and it kind of offers that freedom that Minecraft has, but with this more like rule based thing. I don't know how much I'll get into the PvP because I feel like this is a game I'll just kind of play casually. So maybe I'll just check out the campaign, or me and you can, check out a, co-op situation or something like that. But I think also the campaign you can play through in co-op if you want to play with friends, or you can do the PvP. So that seems pretty cool. And it seems like, once again, just a game that's very open-ended. You can kind of make your fun with it however you want. So I'm definitely looking forward to this one. And it is coming out April 18th. I feel like this game is going to be pretty successful, and I feel like this could be one that for years to come is getting updates, and is one of those things that like every June, once again, it'll be like Elder Scrolls Online. We'll see, here's the new update, whether it's like the ocean update, because we didn't really see any of that, or, exploring caves is a big part of Minecraft, underground, mine shafts and things like that. At some point, I'm sure it'll add features like that, which might be kind of weird with the camera, but who knows? Maybe that's like a good year 1, year 2 update for the game, is something like that. So I feel like there is a lot of opportunity here, and then just all the different biomes that the game has naturally. Like it's going to have a cool lifespan to it, a good long lifespan to it. So I'm pretty excited for that one. And once again, April 18th, so a good date on that pretty soon here. And then anything else on Minecraft? Should we move on?
I'm looking forward to seeing how playing styles change, because like they said, that the maps are always different every time you boot it up. So
yeah, it's got that Minecraft element to it where the world is just, I guess, randomly generated. Unclear if that's how it works in the campaign, right? If it's just like, okay, the enemy base is however many kilometers away, and this is your objective and the tools you're given, or if it's more like, okay, for the campaign we actually built maps out that everyone's using the same one. So we'll see what's going on there. And then last, so this was the surprise of the showcase. They had announced those other 4 games, but this was a surprise to show up here. Was a game called Hi-Fi Rush, which is from, oh god, what is the name? Tango Gameworks, I think is what the studio is called. And so, Tango Gameworks is known for doing the Evil Within 2. Last year they had Ghostwire Tokyo, which was, of course, the PlayStation exclusive, because even though it's Bethesda and now Xbox, that deal was, signed way before that acquisition happened. So that was kind of a weird thing. But Hi-Fi Rush, they show up here with a game that looks just the complete opposite of what they've made before. And they had that big Nintendo Direct pop moment where they had the out today they slapped on it. So as of January 25th, 26th, whatever it was, the game went live on Game Pass right then and there. And, this is also interesting. This game has been in development since before, I guess, Bethesda was acquired by Xbox. But I guess they hadn't signed any sort of deals yet in terms of platform stuff. So this is an Xbox exclusive, and it's on Game Pass day one, of course. So this immediately I was getting like Sunset Overdrive vibes, which I don't know if that was like an intentional thing with them greenlighting, or I guess Xbox wouldn't have greenlit this, was like a Bethesda thing. But I wonder if there's any sort of synergy there where Xbox is like, oh, we are excited for this because Sunset Overdrive was a big success for us. And even in terms of like, Sunset Overdrive is made by Insomniac and now make Spider-Man. This game has a lot of kind of Spider-Man comic booky sort of vibes to it. At least I have got that. But what did you think of this thing? Is this your vibe? I really actually have no idea whether or not this is a Taylor kind of game or not.
It was kind of doing something right for me, not gonna lie. The the musical notes and just the way, like the visual aesthetic, it was very appealing. It definitely, I've never played Sunset Overdrive, but it definitely had something that was reminiscent of it. But
I think just how like vibrant it is, and the way you're moving around this very kind of hectic world, I guess.
Yeah, like maybe even like a degree of Borderlands humor and just like kookiness was kind of thrown into the mix. But yeah, it's something that I do find interesting, and the fact that it was like, it already launched, I always love that. But the gameplay looks really, really cool, very, very smooth, actually, I'll say too. When he was doing some fight sequences, This is one of the big things I noticed was like, God, like if you're playing this on a 120 hertz refresh, like 4K TV, it's probably gonna look super clean.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I love the music. That's the big thing that stands in. Every hit he was landing with his guitar, it was like musical notes playing out to like the score and stuff.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, so for anyone who missed the showcase, this is I guess, a rhythm action game where think about it kind of like a button mashy sort of action game, but with the hook of it being that if you do your attacks in rhythm with the music that's going on, that you get like bonus damage and you can do certain combos, and you gotta get your timing right on your combos. Which the only other game I've played like this is the Crypt of the Necrodancer kind of roguelike game that also had the Cadence of Hyrule, like the Zelda kind of skin version that they released on the Switch for it. And I found that game like incredibly difficult to get into. I just could not get into the rhythm of it. It was very difficult. This is one of Tyler Briggs's like favorite indie games of the whenever that year it was when it came out. And I tried it. And yeah, I couldn't really get into it. But yeah, this game's out today as of a few days ago. So I checked that out over the weekend. I've put a good like hour and a half, 2 hours into it. And it was like immediately, or maybe within like a half an hour, like a lot more playable than those games. And I found like I was able to get into it. And it was just fun because like to really get better at the game, I was like not bumping my head. I'm like tapping my foot to really get into the rhythm of this so that I can get those combos right. And you just feel good doing that. You're doing like a little dance as you're playing this game. And yeah, like the combos themselves aren't too complex. Like the first ones you get are just like hit the X button like 3 times or 4 times in a row and then wait a beat and then hit this one. So you can like pick up these combos pretty easily, and then you can unlock a bunch more in the game. But to kind of add on what I was talking about, those superhero vibes to it, I was getting major Spider-Man vibes here just because the character kind of reminds me of Peter Parker. He looks a bit like Peter Parker, and then he's like very quippy in that same way. He's like kind of into the tech stuff as well. He's got like he also has like this superhero origin story to him where he like goes to this place and like an iPod gets like infused into his body, and that's what gives him this ability. So that's kind of like a weird freak accident superhero thing as well. You have like your guy in the chair in this game who's like telecommunicating with you and like giving you, telling you where to go, how to do this sort of thing. Even like the cell shading aesthetic, they have like the comic book kind of dots, I guess, the comic book grain, I don't know, whatever you want to call that. So it was definitely giving me those kinds of vibes. Not that it plays anything like Spider-Man or like a superhero game, I guess. It is quite different in that way, but it has that tone to it. And yeah, it's great. Like as you mentioned, the game is beautiful, very vibrant. The locations are really fun. There's a lot more platforming in this game than I thought based on just the trailer, the gameplay that they showed off here. But a big part of the game is like cruise enthusiast environments, and part of the you don't really have to be as on the rhythm with the platforming sequences, but I think they are kind of designed to be a bit that way. And those are pretty fun sequences. At some point too, the game will kind of go 2D in almost like a Crash Bandicoot-y sort of way, where it's like a 2D platformer for a little bit as well. So yeah, just a really cool game. I feel like there's a ton of collectibles, or like if you want to do 100%, there's like bonus rooms it seems like I couldn't get into, so you're maybe come back through the game when you've completed stuff. I think I'll just kind of see it to the end and be done with it, but it seems like there's a lot in there. So yeah, this is like, to me, a huge win for Xbox, which is, last year was a very just like looking like Fallout. It was just a wasteland. There was no games that they were releasing on there. They had like Game Pass had a great year, but in terms of the first party, the Xbox Studios, there was very little. Like Pentiment was pretty cool, but that was like their biggest thing, which yeah, it just goes to show how they had like a bit of a weaker year. And I think starting this year off with a hi-fi rush, and like having this first party exclusive game in January that's like super solid and it was like a big surprise is cool. And then they have stuff like lined up for the next few months. So I feel like they're off to a pretty good start here. I don't know if there's anything else I have to say on specifically Hi-Fi Rush, but like honestly, if you're on Game Pass, please check this thing out. It's super cool. And I don't know if I don't know how much it is. I'm guessing it's not a full $80 game. But so yeah, I don't know where I'd recommend it for people otherwise, because I haven't finished it yet. But like boss fights are really cool. Combat's great. The music too, I guess I should mention this, that there is a good mix of original music that they've made for the game, of course, as any game does have a score. But they also had like the opening song is like a Black Keys song that was like in the same beat as well. And I think it's, as far as I can tell, the whole game is in like the same I guess, time signature. It's always the same beat. So it's not like, okay, this level has this beat and I got to get the timing down. The next level is like faster pace. So I got to get the beat down again. Like it's the whole game is kind of this consistent thing. And like they put cues everywhere for what the beat is. Like your character, if you're standing still, he snaps his fingers, he walks to the beat, he's like stomping his feet, and then there's just like random cogs and like any detail in the environment is like also going in the beat as well. And then you have a little companion who's kind of like doing it as well. And then you can even turn on a helper if you want at the bottom of the screen that turns it into like almost looks a bit like a Guitar Hero sort of thing where it just really shows you exactly where the beats are. So they make it pretty easy that way if you're not rhythmically inclined. But yeah, super cool game, and I think this is like a big win for Xbox to have this little surprise hit here.
I agree.
Yeah, so with that, I wanted to kind of have a little bit of discussion on just breaking down these release dates and thinking about where Xbox is the rest of the year is going to look like, or at least maybe the first half of the year. So the big thing here is that they mentioned this when they announced this developer direct. They also said that a Starfield specific direct is coming soon. That's all I said. Soon, of course, can mean anything in the gaming world. Some games have been coming soon for years at this point. But I presume this is going to be in February. At the latest, March is when I think the Starfield thing is going to come. And you have to imagine that's going to be a release date there for that thing. I think if not, people will have pretty big outcry against that. So just a recap from the direct here today and some other things coming to the platform for the next few months. So obviously January got Hi-Fi Rush here. In February, they don't have any first-party thing, but Atomic Heart, shouts to the name of that game, is like a big game they've been pushing. They've shown off in their showcases, and it's on Game Pass day one. That's coming out February 21st. And then Hogwarts Legacy, Like a Dragon, Ishin's also coming out in that month. And then in March, once again, nothing first party, but they have Wolong Fallen Dynasty. That's the Neo team. That's their most recent game. And that's also on Game Pass day one, actually. So that's pretty cool get for them. Also in that month is Star Wars, Resident Evil. And then finally, yeah, April is when you get Minecraft Legends. May, Redfall. June, Elder Scrolls Online. So it's looking like the first, I guess, 6 months of the year is pretty chocked full. So with that being said, Taylor, do you think there's room for Starfield still in the first half of this year, which is what they've said is going to be the case for this thing? Do you think that's still realistic, or is this thing like Forza, like just, cruising down the road down to the end of the year?
I feel like it's going to go to the end of the year. Yeah. Unfortunately, I really do. Yeah.
I unfortunately feel kind of similarly, because once again, like if they do June, they could later on top of this Elder Scrolls Online update. I don't think that's a big deal, but it would still be a bit weird to have like this huge Elder Scrolls update in the same month as their new IP. I know it's not Bethesda Game Studios is not the one making Elder Scrolls Online, but it's like it's their IP, it's their world. So to have that in the same month as Starfield's a bit funky. And then I also think like Diablo 4, like do you want to contend with that? June, if they do that, as well as also only a month after not Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, the Breath of the Wild sequel there. So it just feels a bit full. And they could do summer, they could do July, they could do in August. That's not like them. They've done the November date. I don't know if they're married to the November date, but I feel like the more and more we think about this, it becomes a bit easier for them to kick it to November. That's the date they like to do. That gives them a good few months to really work on this thing. But I would love to be surprised. I don't think it would be any earlier than June. I don't think they'd want to cannibalize Redfall, Minecraft Legends, and I think February, March are like way too soon. Unless the direct is literally this week and it's coming out like the end of February, early March. Even that feels like not that long of a marketing cycle for them to do Starfield, which is a new IP, and they probably want a lot of time allocated towards it. So yeah, it's feeling like a November, because I kind of feel like if it's not pre-June, the November just makes a lot of sense for them.
Yeah. I think that in today's society, when it comes to games are now adopting that kind of movie sense where you have to pick your battles. If you go back a few years, you could have a Destiny, Assassin's Creed, and like another Nintendo title all released on the same day or the same week, and it would totally be fine. But nowadays, companies really have to fight for that space, and you don't want to compete with yourself either. Like you said, if obviously Bethesda, it's like different branches here, and obviously we have Elder Scrolls Online and then Starfield. It just wouldn't make sense to hurt each other like that.
Yeah, and honestly, I think for almost every game, none of them are going to hurt Starfield. That's not the issue. The issue is more that Starfield will just erase whatever else. Whatever you have in the most recently added on Game Pass tab on your Series X console, like Starfield's going to be number one there. That's going to be like the banner. That's going to be like pick up Starfield Deluxe Edition. Like that's going to be on your main tab. And whatever other game it is, Hellblade, not Dead by Daylight, State of Decay, whatever it is, like it's just not going to matter anymore. Like Starfield's just going to take over. So yeah, it's kind of tricky on the timing of that. So with that, if we're assuming then that Starfield is going to want to take that November date, once again, coming back to Forza Motorsport, where do they put that? That actually seems like a really nice summer hit for me. I think with the beautiful maps, some of those like very summery vibes, like that does seem like a good thing. And then it's further away from Starfield, but I don't think they'd want to go too close to Starfield once again if those are like their two biggest first party games of the year, right? I know Forza Motorsport, I think we're like underselling a bit just because, I mean, you're pretty excited for it. I'm going to check it out too, but I guess that is kind of like their second biggest first party thing coming out this year, just in terms of like how much appeal it has. Maybe Minecraft Legends is giving it a run for its money, but yeah, I feel like they got to do some space. So where do you think Motorsport would fall?
I could see that bumping up into the summer. Then you make a really, really good point. I think when it comes to people doing shopping sprees, Christmas gifts, everything like that, Starfield is the game you want going into people's stockings over Forza. Yeah. So I feel like Forza is the game like people will buy for themselves, and they know the fan base that they have. Starfield is the one that it's the new one. It doesn't have that already pre-established fan base like Forza. So you want to take advantage of word of mouth, and you want people to be buying it as gifts and going crazy. So yeah, and you're right. Just the aesthetic of Forza would just fit with that kind of summer vibe.
Yeah, and then just kind of quickly, like other things. I feel like Hellblade's coming out this year. At least I felt that way. The more and more information that we look about the release dates of these things, and it's like Hellblade's not in the first half of the year. They probably don't want it right next to Starfield. Like, where do they put it? This becomes a bit tricky, which I did draft that one, so I'm hopeful it comes out this year. If not, we do have a repicking rule, but I really want that one on my list. So there's something like that. What else? I think for me, the other thing too, I was pretty hopeful that Avowed would be coming out this year. That's the kind of Elder Scrolls looking thing from Obsidian Entertainment. Once again, we've only seen a very quick tease for that. But just based on release dates of things, I kind of was anticipating maybe that would be coming out this year. But I feel like that's, an open world action RPG. They don't want that anywhere near Starfield. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm maybe a bit worried here. I mean, maybe there's room for one big summer thing, but I don't know how you could fit all these Hellblade, Avowed, and Motorsport along with Starfield. So I think maybe most likely is that Avowed is next year, and that's probably good for them too, to give some space and allow that team to have more time, give them space from Starfield, and give them the spotlight in that way. Because Xbox, they've always talked about this in like their new plan with acquiring all these studios, is they want like a big first party hit every quarter, right? So once again, we need to have something ready to go for like the January, February slot. And Avowed could be a good one for that or something like that. But yeah, any other Xbox thoughts, release dates, things you're curious about, games you've been watching them releasing, or Game Pass things that you think might be relevant in this discussion of just looking at the room that they have this year?
Well, I mean, I have my own preference of things that have been announced and I haven't heard anything about, and I'm just waiting to see what comes out of it. But I mean, I don't really have anything else really on these specific titles, though.
Okay. Yeah, there's so many things that they've announced, and once again, that like thing they did of like everything, all these things are coming out in the next 12 months, so that gives us till June. I think we'll see a couple other things slip a bit later in the year, which is okay, but yeah, I'm sure that like this showcase laid out the roadmap till June, which is presumably when they will do their big summer event, and that will kind of lay out what the rest of the year is looking like for them. And with the one exception right now being Starfield, which will hopefully soon, does truly mean soon, and we'll have the spot for that. But yeah, I'm excited, man. This is going to be a good year for Xbox. I mean, last year I think they did a great job of, in the lack of first-party titles, they really ramped up the Game Pass releases. There was a ton of great Game Pass releases. Like a lot of my top 10 games of the year last year were just not Xbox things, but they were on Game Pass, and that was pretty fantastic to have. So, yeah, very much looking forward to what they have going on this year. And yeah, that's all for us today. Next week, me and Travis will be back here talking about Midnight Sun's Deadpool update, which I've been playing. It's been fun. We're going to break down what's going on there. And I'm sure some other news and all sorts of good stuff. There's been talk about when's that Nintendo Direct coming. So maybe we'll have another Direct to talk about soon enough here. But Taylor, thank you for joining me. Thank you for the thumbnails, all that juicy stuff. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And we will see you again next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.